Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
This opinion is crap, my boss told me. He'd been a lawyer for 3 years and the firm assigned me to him for training to show me, junior counsel, how to be a litigator. I disliked my boss for a number of reasons. He knew no law and he expressed himself badly in writing. For a litigator, that's like strike 1 and 2 right there. And strike 3 was this: he had no balls. He was actually scared of going to court. I noticed this when he took me to assignment court one day, and when it was his turn to speak, his hands were shaking. He was scared. In freaking assignment court, where all you do is set a trial date. What's wrong with what I wrote? I asked. Not what I asked for, he said, turning away. But when I checked my memo he'd emailed me 2 weeks earlier, I saw that the opinion I wrote was exactly what he asked for. I knew what was up. He was going to delete my dockets for writing the memo and then claim he did it himself, thus leaving quite a bit short of my docketing quota for the months. I knew that he would do this to me because he'd done this before. I knew that my memo would wind up on a partner's desk without my name on it. I knew that for a fact because the firm I worked at was one of the first in the city to have a really good internal network. We were using email for internal communications before the internet became a thing, so the firm was way ahead in terms of technology but not in terms of security. And not long after I joined the firm, I learned how to surf away on the firm's hard drive and find interesting things like evidence that my boss was plagiarizing my work. My boss was a very model of a young downtown lawyer. His perfect shoes always gleamed. He wore bespoke suits because he came from money. Everyone just took it for granted that he was on the partner track. I, on the other hand, was well on my way to nowhere special, so maybe he thought it was okay to screw with me. If so, that was a big mistake on his part. I didn't like having my billable hours screwed with. I seriously resented it, because I was already being targeted as one of the juniors who doesn't docket as much as he should, and I was getting pushback from the partner who headed our team. I told the partner what was going on, but he didn't care. It was like being back in middle school and showing up in the office with bruises on my face and a principal saying boys will be boys and sending me on my way. You'll just have to work harder or smarter, the partner said when I reported the latest nonsense thing my boss did to me. I couldn't work harder. I was doing the usual 6 days a week lawyers downtown are forced to do. But I could work smarter, and that night I thought up a plan. Christmas was coming and I thought I'd give my boss a little present. It landed on his desk on December 24th in the form of a memo purporting to be from the partner that my boss reported to. The partner, who was an old guy and not really on board with emails and computers, so he did everything old school, on paper. So when my boss came in on December 24th and saw a memo on his desk from the partner with a legal research assignment, that wasn't unusual. The memo was drafted in the usual form that the partner used because, of course, I had taken great pains to make sure that it looked authentic. My boss walked over to the little cubicles where the juniors worked and gave me the same memo. Except his secretary had retyped it, so now the assignment was from him to me instead of from the partner to my boss. The assignment was difficult, requiring me to do a deep dive into admiralty law, its relationship to the common law, combined with a constitutional division of powers question. But this is a huge assignment, I whined, and I'm going to be away. Can't you get someone else to do it? Is it really urgent? The memo I'd forged to my boss stressed how totally urgent the situation was, but there was no way my boss could double-check with the partner, because the partner left the day before on vacation, and that's why I'd waited until December 24th. No can do, my boss said. This is a big deal. Just let HR know. Maybe they will give you time and a half or something. He turned his back and walked away thinking he had ruined my holidays, but he was mistaken. You see, I'd written a paper for a third-year course that was basically the same thing as a research assignment in the memo, so the only work I had to do was to find the old floppy disk with a draft on it, fiddle with it a bit, and voila, a very detailed and very long memo on an obscure point of Admiralty law with references starting back to Lord Coke's day. So I put the memo together and took my holidays as planned. I wasn't traveling anywhere because, well, I had no money, but I saw my family and stayed in town, and I made a point of dropping by the office during the holidays, sending an email or two establishing that I was around, and docketing all my time for the huge amount of research I was allegedly doing. So the holidays end, and I'm sitting in my crabby little cubicle with a huge stack of work to do, and my boss comes up to me in one of his bespoke suits with a gold tie pin and cufflinks to match. He was wearing a gold watch too. He was dressed up even for him, trying to make an impression of some kind. "Where is that memo? You were supposed to have it on my desk when I got back. I'm going into a meeting at noon." "Just finished it this morning," I said, handing him the lengthy memo that was still warm from the printer. My boss took the memo in his hands and felt its heft, and he smiled. Then he turned and walked away without a word. Just before lunch, I heard a commotion down the hall. It was a pretty loud commotion, as such things go, a loud damn. And then a door was flung open. It was a partner, and he was screaming for my boss to get his A into his office. Now, right now, as in immediately. I had the pleasure of watching my boss scramble down the hall. Just what sit standing in a doorway to his office and holding my handiwork at arm's length with his thumb and index finger. That handling it would soil him. My boss mumbled something, and then a partner ushered him inside. I heard some shouting, then the sound of muffled excuses, and then more shouting from the partner. Then a door flung open again. "Hey, get your butt in here too," the partner said, and I got my butt in there pronto. "Did you write this memo?" the partner said. I took it from him and looked it over. "I wrote it. The cover page has been changed to remove my name, but other than that, it's mine. I spent all Christmas on it. Is there something wrong with it?" The partner exploded. "Is there something wrong with it? Something wrong? I'll tell you what's wrong with it. It's useless. Totally useless." I explained that I'd followed my boss's instructions to the letter and that I'd docketed more than 100 hours on it. At this, the partner really went nuts and told me to go back to my desk and fetch him the memo from my boss. I brought it to him, and when he read it, his face went red. He told me I could leave, and I hauled my butt out of there. From my little cubicle, I wasn't close enough to hear the full chewing out my boss got, but I heard the details through the grapevine over the next few days. But how the partners were seriously pissed that my boss had wasted over 100 hours of a junior's time on a useless task that was obviously a prank. And how had my boss not realized that he was being pranked? Was he an idiot? I wasn't blamed at all. Of course, I had been working under my boss's close supervision. My boss didn't get fired, but there were some good outcomes for me. For one thing, the partner told me to send him a copy of any memos I wrote for my boss, and that ended with him taking credit for my work. My boss also stopped deleting my dockets for my research. Plus, I got a belated Christmas bonus for having to give up on my alleged vacation to write the stupid memo. I really hated working in that place, but whenever times were tough, I'd think back to the case of the forged memo, and that always brought a smile to my face. Background: I'm from the UK, and this happened about 10 years ago when I was 17 or 18. I worked for a relatively large homeware/leisure store. I only worked Saturdays and the odd Sunday if they had overtime or were short-staffed. I didn't work every Sunday, as I also did karate on those mornings. I was competing in every championship I could. I was also still in full-time education, doing my A-levels at the time. I had had a few days off earlier in the year after 2 deaths in my family. My fiancé, story for another time, and my grandpa, and being sexually assaulted on the streets. My line manager, we will call him misogynistic F-Tard or MF for this story, was not all that understanding of any of these events. I've been signed off for 2 weeks, 2 days to be exact, when I came back to work after the assault. With a broken wrist, I got permission from the store manager, Epic Boss or EB, to move to a different department towards the back of the store where there were less people. I've been having really bad anxiety attacks. I normally work tills, and this jerk came to find me to question why I had been off for the last 2 weekends. I explained. He was annoyed as he had not been informed of this, and informed me that if I had any more unexplained absences in the next few months, I would be written up with a disciplinary. According to him, it was my fault that I had been attacked. If I didn't have my chest out all the time, it wouldn't have happened. I'm curvy and quite busty, and I was on my way home from karate in my G, very sweaty and looking quite disgusting at the time. I had found out in July of that year that I was severely allergic to alcohol, like anaphylactic shock level severe. My first time drinking, I had vodka and coke, took 2, maybe 3 sips, and then woke up in a hospital a few hours later. Bear in mind I had never touched alcohol before this point, so was not aware this would happen. Since then, I have been overly cautious of ordering drinks in loud places, as they may mishear what I've asked for. The event. In November, a friend of mine and I went out for dinner on a Thursday night. The restaurant was quite loud. She ordered vodka and lemonade, and I ordered a half pint of lemonade. Our drinks were brought out. She checked the one in front of her first. Yep, hers was a vodka lemonade, so I drank mine. As soon as it hit my mouth, I knew something was wrong. I could smell peaches. I could feel my throat starting to swell. My friend noticed, grabbed my EpiPen from my bag, I always carry one just in case, and shouted for help. I must have passed out as I, again, woke up in a hospital a few hours later. I was discharged Friday morning and phoned my school to let them know I would not be coming in. I received 2 doctor's notes, one for school and one for work. However, because of the warning I had received from the jerk, and being a naive and quite nervous person, I was terrified of getting into trouble at work. So I went in. I handed the note to the epic boss, let her know of the situation, and she assured me that if I wasn't feeling too well, I could go home. I went up to the staff area to put my bag away and to sit down for a bit before my shift started at 11. I'm sitting chatting with a few co-workers when this jerk walks in. He sees that I'm a bit green around the gills. What's wrong with you today? I've been a bit ill this week. But he cuts me off. I really don't care, you work 1 day a week, you're not going home. He walks out of the room. My compliance. I stayed at work. The epic boss came over to me, asked how I was feeling, about halfway through my shift. I was not doing too well, but was scared of being written up, so I told her I was fine, as a jerk was also nearby. A few hours later, just as a jerk was about to go on his lunch, the epic boss had finished her shift for the day. He came over and stopped me. As I was about to get up from my till, I walked to the women's bathroom. I was feeling very sick at that point. The jerk says, "See, I told you you'd be fine." I puke on his shoes. Oops. He leaves and me, being me, went to the bathroom, cleaned myself up, whilst one of my coworkers got the in-store cleaner to sort out the workstation. I stayed until the end of my shift, another 2 hours, and I was sopping by the time I came out. Luckily, my dad was coming to get me, so I didn't have to wait too long. I let him know what happened. My dad was fuming. I had already let him know about the threat of being written up if I had any more absences when he tried to get me to stay home from work that day. Dad and I went in the next day to have a chat with a jerk and the epic boss about the day before. The jerk wasn't working that day as he had called in sick, so he just spoke to the epic boss alone. She was shocked to find out what had happened. None of the supervisors has informed her of what had happened. I put in a formal complaint with the epic boss, and one other supervisor sat in to act as a witness. The epic boss had not been informed either that I had been given a verbal warning over my so-called unexplained absences. I let the epic boss know that I was actively looking for a new job, but asked that any references should come from her, rather than a jerk. I also let her know of the other comments he made to me about my chest and the way I dressed, and other co-workers attested to hearing him say things like this to me. He was then given a formal warning when he returned to work. I worked there on Saturday and handed in my notice of resignation at the end of my shift. I was technically still a temp. After 3 years, as I had never signed another contract after the initial term had finished. I was only required to give 1 week's notice if I was leaving. This happened to me just last week, and I'm still shaking my head over the entitlement of some people. I'm a military veteran, served for a good chunk of my life before I was medically discharged. Adjusting back to civilian life has its ups and downs, but for the most part, I keep to myself and try to enjoy the little things, you know? Anyway, on this particular day, I decided to treat myself to a little shopping spree. Nothing fancy, just some groceries and maybe a new book or something. I heard this store was offering a special discount for veterans, which I thought was pretty cool. Not all places recognize vets, so it's always a pleasant surprise when they do. So there I was in line waiting my turn. I had my ID and paperwork ready to show for the discount. The store had a policy where military personnel could skip the line as a sign of respect for their service. I usually don't take advantage of these perks because I don't like making a fuss, but the line was unusually long and honestly my back was killing me that day. As I moved to the front, I heard someone huffing and puffing behind me. I turned around and locked eyes with the epitome of a Karen. You know the type, haircut, attitude, the whole 9 yards. She had this look of disbelief on her face, as if I had just committed the greatest of sins. "Excuse me," she barked. "Why are you cutting the line? We've been waiting here for ages." I tried to explain. "Ma'am, the store has a policy for military veterans. I'm not trying to be rude or anything, it's just something they offer." But Karen wasn't having any of it. "That's ridiculous. I'm a single mother with 6 kids. I deserve that discount more than you. My life is way harder than someone who's just been plain soldier." I couldn't believe my ears. Plain soldier? This lady had no clue. I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my cool. "Ma'am, I respect your situation, but that doesn't give you the right to diminish my service or anyone else's." She scoffed. "Service, please. What have you done that's so special? I raised 6 kids of my own. I should get more recognition than you." The conversation was going nowhere and people were starting to stare. I just wanted to pay for my items and leave, but Karen wasn't done. She stepped closer, her finger wagging in my face. "You're going to let me have that discount or else." Or else? Really? I was about to turn away when she did the unthinkable. She tried to slap me. Maybe she thought I'd just stand there and take it, but instincts kicked in. I blocked her attempt and, in the heat of the moment, my hand reacted. Before I knew it, Karen was on the ground, holding her cheek, looking up at me in shock. The store went silent and chaos erupted. Someone called security and within minutes, there were 2 officers on the scene. Karen was quick to play the victim, tears streaming down her face as she recounted the tale of how I attacked her unprovoked. But there were plenty of witnesses and security footage quickly cleared things up. In the end, Karen was the one getting handcuffed and escorted out of the store, still shouting about how she was a real victim and how unfair everything was. The officers apologized to me for the inconvenience and even thanked me for my service. The store manager did the same, offering me the discount and a gift card as an apology for the ordeal. I left the store with a mix of emotions, anger, disbelief, but also a bit of pity for Karen. It's one thing to be entitled, but it's another to be so blinded by your own self-importance that you would attack someone for a perceived slight. This whole incident got me thinking about respect, gratitude, and the world we're living in. I don't expect special treatment for being a vet, but I also don't think it's too much to ask for a bit of understanding and common decency. Anyways, that's my story. Thanks for listening, stay strong, and keep moving forward. This happened in Germany, so the laws are different to other countries, especially to the USA. I was working for a family-owned business, about 40 employees, a couple of years ago. My time there wasn't the best because I had huge problems with my boss's younger brother. He was on early pension and officially just working on a small part-time contract, while in reality working full-time was getting most of his salary out of pocket. That I was hired meant for him that he just worked about half the hours he worked before, and having a huge pay cut because of me pissed him off, as you can imagine. He talked bad about me behind my back all the time and tried to get me fired. Dealing with him was a pain in the arse, but I didn't have to deal with him too often. My co-workers were nice and the pay was good, so I didn't really care about finding another job despite my relationship with my boss and his wife getting worse over time too. My boss even came with me to 2 deliveries to customers because his brother probably told him I would waste time during the deliveries. One day I had to do a delivery with my boss's wife's car because a company car I normally use was at the inspection that day and the timing couldn't have been worse. I scratched the fender of her car on a wall when I tried to get out to the parking spot. The scratches were barely noticeable, but I immediately reported it to one of my coworkers so no one can say that I tried to put it under the rug. I did the delivery and when I came back my boss's wife already waited for me. She went completely crazy, screamed at me for ruining her car without inspecting the damage before, and said that she will take the money for the repair from my paycheck. I told her that I won't pay for anything because the insurance will pay for it anyway, and that's what let her snap, and she slapped me across the face. I immediately turned around, grabbed my stuff, clocked out, and went to the doctor to get a sick note because of mental stress, which I threw into the company's mailbox in the evening. 2 days later, I got a termination letter in the mail and had to laugh while reading just the first sentence. We are terminating your work contract immediately. Or if this isn't applicable, within a legal 30 days. To people who aren't familiar with German workers' laws, it is illegal to terminate a contract immediately and within a legal period of time in the same termination letter. You can do one or another, but not both at the same time. So I went to the government office to apply for unemployment and hired a lawyer to sue my boss for illegal termination. Over 2.5 months went by until I got a court date and my boss was really pissed when a judge explained to him that the termination was illegal and that he had to pay me for the last 2.5 months. But the illegal termination wasn't the only mistake he made. The judge gave me 2 options. I can accept an immediate termination on that day and leave without compensation, or I can have a 2-month salary compensation, but I have to work another month for the company. My boss laughed and said that I am too scared to go back to work and that it makes him happy that I leave the court unemployed. He didn't look that happy anymore when I asked him, why should I be scared? Do you want to beat me like your wife did? So I took option B and went to work the next morning. My boss's brother already waited for me to hand me the termination letter and make comments about how difficult the next 30 days would be for me. I checked the termination letter and after I saw that everything was right, I just said that I'm not feeling well. Turned around and went to my doctor to get another 30-day sick note because of burnout. So, at the end I had a 3.5 months vacation with full pay, 2 months salary compensation, and he had to pay for my lawyer too because he lost a court. I could have sued my boss's wife for the slap too, but that would have been too much stress for maybe a couple €100. I was shopping at a store that rhymes with Say this weekend on the way home from a really awesome date night with my fiancé. So I was dressed pretty nicely, black jacket, black skirt, and heels. Fiancé and I usually go our separate ways in the store to achieve the best efficiency of finishing our list as fast as possible. So I was alone when this interaction started. An older Karen, probably around 60, was putting around the soup aisle and hemming and hawing at the sale 10 for $10. And I guess she saw me with my cart, putting something back on a shelf. She cleared her throat a few times and stomped around, but obviously, I was just minding my own business. Hey lady, me deciding between Say brand mac and cheese or Kraft. Hey you, manager, excuse me, hey. Me finally acknowledging her. Oh me? I'm not a manager. Did you need some help or something? Well, obviously you're a manager. Why else would you be dressed like that? Which of these soups count for the 10 for 10? I am not a manager. I don't work here. And I don't know, probably the ones that are directly labeled in a sign that says 10 for 10? What the hell is your problem? You're the one yelling at me. Karen stomped over, wagging her finger at me like I was a child, yelling at me about customer service, how I should do my job and help her choose her soups, and all what's wrong with the youth today. Something also along the lines of me getting fired for incompetence. I don't know, I zoned out. Ma'am, if you need help, please go up to one of the cashiers that work here and ask him. I am here buying food like you. Stop lying. You think I'm stupid? You're a manager here. You're wearing the costume. You think you can just… Okay, listen, Then Karen smacks my hand, making me drop the box of mac and cheese I was holding. Do not interrupt me. What the hell, lady? You just hit me. Yeah, I did. You interrupted me. Seriously, what the hell? At this point, my fiancé heard my yelling and zoomed over. He was also dressed nicely, button up, black slacks, and the works. What's happening? Babe, are you alright? He asks. She just slapped my hand because she's too thick to hear me when I say I don't work here. What? You need to fire this witch. She won't do her job. My fiancé tells her, do you really think everyone dressed remotely nice is a manager? Crickets. Well, I know she is. She was putting back that jar earlier. Because I didn't want to buy it, you dummy. You can't talk to me that way. I say to my fiancé, babe, grab an actual manager please. I want to call the cops on this crazy witch. I'm a paying customer. And so are we. This is getting long, so the rest of it went like this. She stepped back in shock, but we both yelled at her, and fiancé waved over some poor unsuspecting person. The actual manager got there, and the lady started her BS again about how both me and my fiancé should get fired, how we suck, and so on and so on and so on. She proudly admitted to hitting me, by the way, which was hilarious. The manager looked at us and back at her and told her to apologize for hitting me and that she should leave. She again mentioned my manager costume and how it's my fault. The manager, in his actual manager outfit, pointed at his badge and name tag, his specific all-black outfit, and tried to explain to her that all the managers are dressed like he was, that we were definitely not managers just because we looked nice, and she's assaulting another customer. But she deserved it for talking back to me. The manager had this "I want to run you over with a car" look on his face, and he slowly spoke to her like she was free, again explaining that we didn't work there. I piped up asking the manager politely to inform the woman that if she doesn't apologize, I would like him to call the police and file for assault. The manager repeated this to the lady slowly, and the lady screeched and threw a can on the ground, swiped her arm through a bunch of the soaps, causing them to avalanche to the ground, and briskly waddled out of the store. We helped the manager pick up the soaps even though he kept saying sorry and that we didn't have to help him. And he asked if I really wanted to press charges. I said yes. After the police came and everything was said and done, the lady got arrested and we laughed about my manager costume and got a $30 gift card to use for our groceries. I was at Walmart looking for wrapping paper during the week of Black Friday. I was wearing a navy blue shirt and black jeans. This is important. I was in the aisle sorting through the tubes. There were tubes in the wrong places and I was moving them back to where they belonged. Enter in, Karen was her 3 toddlers in tow. Return this item to the shelf. She proceeded to thrust the computer keyboard into my hands. The Walmart in my town always switches things around for Black Friday because of convenience sake. So I had no idea where the keyboards were. Sorry ma'am, I don't know where the keyboards are. I tried to hand the keyboard back to her, and she swatted my hand away from her. The keyboard clattered to the ground and everyone else in the aisle looked at us. She glared at my rainbow pin on my shirt and looked at me like she just sucked on a lemon. I just watched you stuck up the wrapper paper, so don't give me that. I have been looking for a worker for 15 minutes to return that for me. And I didn't waste all that time just to be disrespected by a stupid F word. Now this is when I got upset. I don't try to be very confrontational, but when you've had 4 hours of sleep and are listening to cranky mom yelling at you with 2/3 of her children screeching in the background, the irritation is hard to ignore. Are you insane? I don't work here, lady. I have no name tag. I have no Walmart logo on my shirt, and I don't know where the keyboards are. By this point, someone in the aisle had reported this lady, and an actual employee was approaching us. I picked up the keyboard and tried to hand it back to her one more time. Big mistake. As soon as the keyboard touched her hand, Karen screeched at the top of her lungs and flopped to the ground like a soccer player during the World Cup. He hit me! He hit me with a keyboard! My face went bright red and I turned to the other people in the aisle as they stared at her in disgust. A grown woman screeching that a 15-year-old beat her with a keyboard. The employee reached us and helped up Karen. Arrest him! Arrest him for assault! The employee just rolled his eyes. Come with me, ma'am, he says. I got my wrapping paper and walked home. I went back to Walmart the other day and the employee told me that she had charges pressed against her for disturbing the peace. Edit. I forgot to mention she thought I looked like an employee because of what I was wearing. The color of my shirt really looked like the same color of a uniform, but it was still obvious enough that I didn't work there. For backstory, I always wear a leather cloak and a huge leather boots from the army, had very long hair and looked nothing like an employee of any shop. Anyway, I was just browsing around in my local grocery shop while wearing headphones, as so many other people do in these stories and in general. And I was looking at tea, contemplating which one to get for a nice evening. Out of the corner of my eye, I spot someone thinking they are looking at me. I don't mind it, as I'm very awkward in social life and have huge anxiety when it comes to speaking to strangers. While I was still searching for the tea I wanted, I felt someone poking at my shoulder. I look up and see it, the angry face of a wild Karen. Haircut? Check. Clothes? Check. Attitude? Definitely. I take out one of my earbuds and ask, "Is everything okay? Do you need help?" To which she only replies, "Why didn't you ask sooner? Why do you think that you can ignore a customer like that?" I was a bit confused, so I asked what she meant by that, to which she screams, "I have been waiting for at least 10 minutes for some employee to notice me, but everyone working here is an ignorant fool that's too lazy to do his job." By that, I was even more confused and told her that she must have been mistaken, as I clearly don't work there. You could obviously tell by the way I was dressed, and that I'm just another customer. She's saying that I'm just too lazy to do my freaking job, and that I have to help her immediately or she's going to have me fired. At this point, my anxiety kicks in, as I hate it when a stranger yells at me or is taking too much time talking to me. I just turned around without my tea and started to walk away. She responds to my attempted fleeing by screaming even louder that I need to do my job and she's going to have me fired. I quickly tried to get away, but for whatever reason, she grabs my wrist and spins me around. I yell at her despite my ongoing panic attack that she better let go of me or I am going to defend myself against her attacking me. In whatever way, I will do that. At this point, the management has heard the commotion of the wild Karen and I runs up to us and asks what is going on. I tell the manager that she has been keeping me from leaving because I refused to help her after screaming at me. And the only thing she can say is, "He tried to sexually assault me. I felt threatened and tried to get away, but he kept me from going." At this point, they take us in to get separate statements. And while my story is always the same, hers changes every time she tells it. Luckily, there are cameras everywhere in the store. And even luckier, they recorded everything that happened. In the end, the police were called, reviewed the tapes, and asked me if I wanted to press charges. And of course I said yes. And the case is still ongoing. She has been permanently banned from the store, and I even got a box of tea for free. Edit for everyone that wanted to know how this played out. Karen and I were in court. She had no evidence to prove that she wasn't in the wrong. I had video footage of everything that happened. And just like that, she got sentenced to about 1 year on parole. So this happened back around the end of 2018. I worked for a supported community living company. My day-to-day consisted of assisting clients with developmental disabilities perform daily tasks such as administrating medication, toileting, transportation, but a major part of what I did was behavior de-escalation. Many individuals that are part of the IDD, intellectually developmentally disabled, community have behavioral issues that range from harmless to extremely violent. I sincerely enjoyed this part of my job because at times it was dangerous, but you would always learn so much from just trying to help them regulate their emotions. A behavior is just them trying to communicate a want or a need that they have. They just don't know how to use their words sometimes. On this particular day, the client that I was closest to had a meltdown, punched holes in the wall, tore a blackboard off the wall, pushed over a large cabinet, stripped naked, threw fecal matter, and the works. Mind you, this was actually pretty common for them, especially around winter time when they missed their family. Eventually, after hours of trying on our own to calm them down, we had to call the police. When they arrived, 3 officers, 2 very kind ones and then an arrogant jerk, my client became sort of quiet and compliant. I knew from years of working with them that that definitely was not a good sign. My supervisor also noticed this, and as we told him to watch out, the arrogant jerk stated, "We know how to do our jobs, ma'am." Cue malicious compliance. So, being a dutiful citizen, I shut my mouth and my supervisor did the same. We watched the client edge closer as the officers were speaking to them. I should mention they were able to get the client to put on clothes before this. When they were within arm's reach, my client made their move. As fast as lightning, my client reached their hands down into their pants and proceeded to slap the arrogant jerk in the face with their crabby hand. At that point, it was an assault on an officer, so they swiftly cuffed him and sent him to a holding cell at the sheriff's department until they had calmed down enough to be released. Being a part of the IDD community prevented them from pressing any kind of charges on my client, so they got off pretty easy. The arrogant jerk, on the other hand, ended up with pink eyes for 2 weeks. I found out later on from a state trooper friend that he was pretty disliked in general, so it made for a good laugh for them as well. Edit. I absolutely understand where the concern comes from about the client's safety, and as part of my job that was also my utmost concern as well. The area that I live in is pretty rural, so the most opportunities for employment are found either at a factory or an SCL company. The police in this area are actually very used to dealing with this community because of this. This was not the first time we had called them for this particular client, and one of them had actually transported this client to a mental health hospital for us previously. They just sent the wrong officer this time.